Right. Okay. We have a full agenda today, and wow, what a crowd. And if you haven't seen the wonderful pictures out there, we'll be talking about those a little bit. And everybody is required to go look at all of those on their way out if you didn't study them on the way in. But first, anyone who wants to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us may do so. So what was I talking about there? The environmental resilience team from the school, but it's even more than that, actually. Ravi Davis, I got your name right? Yeah, so the teacher who keeps this together, those pieces of art that the students have done, some of them are from the environmental resilience team, I think about 3 of them. But there are also others from elementary school. There are some that are homeschooled. So there are 8 out there, I believe. I think we have 8 on display. They will be mounted at different places in town, and they'll be framed and protected from the elements, and there will be maps and all that good stuff. But my comments, what I want to say is, it is such a good thing at such a young age to see these kids with that type of environmental conscience and thinking of our resource preservation and protection, and plus they're great artists too. So they're really off to a wonderful start. Do we have some of the artists actually in here today? Which ones? How many of them actually? Why don't you come down here? I want to shake your hands. So. Arrangement that we have here, but wonderful work. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for sharing it with us and with the town. It'll be shared with the town for, how long will those stay up? Yeah, so it becomes part of the town. It really is part of our the ecology of Estes. So thank you so much for what you've done, and thank you for being here. Do we have any other photo ops that folks need to do here? Got them? Okay. Yeah. I should mention that in addition to the school working with this and the teachers and the kids, that Larimer County also provided a grant to this. I think the Watershed Coalition helped out. Thanks, Frank. And let's see, what was the other group that you mentioned? What's that? Parks and Rec. Obviously, our special district of Parks and Rec. So it really is a community effort and county-wide effort, if you will, to put this together. Thanks again. We have a lot of fun stacked at the beginning of the agenda here because we have a couple proclamations now. So the first proclamation is related to Estes Park Recycles Day. And let me get the right one. And, we haven't passed the ordinance yet that limits it to 3 whereases, so you might find there's a few extra in here. Okay. Whereas Estes Park recognizes the importance of protecting and preserving our natural resources and adopting conscientious habits that will bring about a cleaner, safer, and more sustainable environment. And whereas Estes Park Recycles Day provides Estes Valley locals an opportunity to recycle electronics, which by law may not be deposited into landfills or single-stream recycling bins in Colorado. And whereas it is essential for security purposes to shred papers containing personal and financial information before recycling them, and whereas the 2026 Estes Park Recycles Day collection includes electronics, scrap metal, and document shredding to further extend recycling opportunities for our residents and businesses. And whereas the collection of recyclable goods has been extended to include bicycles, bicycle tires and tubes, crutches, walkers, and wheelchairs. And whereas there is an opportunity for businesses and residents to properly dispose of hard-to-recycle material at the annual Estes Park Recycles Day, and whereas to improve sustainability, promote good disposal habits, and provide multiple benefits to our citizens and our businesses, the League of Women Voters Community Recycling Committee, the Rotary Club of Estes, and the Town of Estes Park have organized a multi-purpose recycling activity on August 8th, 2026. You'll see it in all the papers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and the trustees of the Town of Estes Park do hereby proclaim August 8th, 2026 as Estes Park Recycles Day, and enthusiastically call upon the citizens of Estes Park to bring their hard-to-recycle disposables and join everyone else at the Town of Estes Park Event Center from 9 a.m. to noon, now you know the time, to celebrate Estes Park Recycles Day by recycling. Right. Do we have any photo ops associated with this one? Or I don't know that we do, actually, right? And you want to sign the attest there so that we can give this then to them? Oh. Here, I got one. Oh, okay. Ta-da. And this too.
Yep.
We move on to another one here. This relates, as you know, our arts community has really been scoring well. I'd say the bar keeps being raised, you know, with our certification of an Estes Arts District and all of the good stuff that's going on around that. So this is related to our arts community. Whereas the town of Estes Park is home to many individuals, businesses, and nonprofits involved in creative pursuits. And whereas every August, well-known artists from all over the country converge on Estes Park for Estes Valley Plein Air. And whereas every August, the annual Artist Studio Tour is celebrated in Estes Park with an immersive home-to-home art experience showcasing talented local artists. And whereas every August, the Estes Park Jazz Fest brings the soulful sounds of jazz to the heart of the Rockies. And whereas this August, the Fine Arts Guild of the Rockies will produce a theater performance. And whereas new murals will be installed in Estes Park as the Estes Arts District launches a community-wide mural program. And whereas all residents and visitors will be invited to join in with creating and experiencing art in Estes Park. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Town of Estes Park proclaim August 2026, they get a whole month, as Estes Arts Month, and thank all citizens who are participating in this year's arts celebration during the month of August, and support the arts organizations of the Estes Park community all year long. So, thanks to all of our artists. And we do have a photo opportunity with this one, so.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Any other artists that want to come up?
Artists. Come on down.
there?
Hey, John.
Frank plays piano.
Come on, artists, don't be shy.
Tim, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
Well, thank you so much for all you do for the arts. Good to see you. Snuck up on me. And keep it going, and I know you will. Sadly, we must turn to real business now. Actually, that is real business. In fact, I think this spirit of stuff is really the real business and purpose of the town, the soul and the heart of the town. So on to the agenda approval. Any changes or additions to the agenda as written?
Nope. Just gonna make a motion. I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Trustee Eshelman moved to approve the agenda as written. Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton seconded. We can vote.
We don't have Frank, is that part of the problem? Don't vote for him.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, no,
Don't do that.
abstain. The agenda is approved as written. We will now move to public comment for items not on the agenda. Any public comments on quasi-judicial items must be reserved for the appropriate public hearing. Does any member of the public request to speak on a non-agenda item? Go ahead, Frank. And you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Frank Tice, 685 Peakview Drive. I wanted to thank Trustee Eigel for bringing up the issue earlier of the fire district funding, and the administrator, Travis, for clarifying that the board has not discussed the possibility of taking the funding away from the fire district that we currently have. I worked on that election. It took 3 elections to get that passed. That money is there because we had to compensate and create a fire district that paid basically for 50% of what they do, which is visitors. We couldn't do that with a property tax. It had to be sales tax. I treat that as a sacred commitment, and I'm glad you all acknowledge that. You may not know the history. I also think if you want to see that pass for the fire district, which would be wonderful, we couldn't do that back then. Please make a serious effort to do some budget engineering and show the public that you're not just rubber stamping a $34 million facility. I think that would help us vote for the fire district funding to make the public safety facility come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment, and I may have to query my town attorney. Is this in quasi-judicial? Mr. Scholl wishes to speak. Is this currently categorized as quasi-judicial?
Yes and no, Mayor. It's in the midst of a quasi-judicial process. There is not a pathway I'm aware of at the time of it coming to the town board
Okay.
for adjudication. It could be that the town board needs to pass an ordinance at some point or do something else to constitute the Board of Appeals. So unless the town board decides to become the appeal body for any appeal from Mr. Scholl, this is something that's probably not coming to you.
Yeah. So at this point, yes, sir, you may speak.
Good evening. My name's Matt Scholl. I'm a business owner here in Estes Park. Actually, 45 years ago tonight, on July 28, 1981, the board's predecessors approved the Murphyville subdivision plat signed by the mayor, the town clerk, town engineer. The plat identifies the structure at 450 Hillside Lane as a duplex. No conditions, no open violations noted. As far as anybody could reasonably tell, that settled it 45 years ago today. In May, I purchased the property, a home built in 1951, zoned R2. The town permitted to be converted to a duplex in 1980. It's been occupied as a duplex ever since. Shortly after closing, my family was prevented from occupying it based on the part of the a county tax listing describing it as single family. The current determination also relies on the absence of a certificate of occupancy. This home was permitted in November 1980 and occupied in December. The town's ordinance 1081 first required the certificate of occupancy for a home like this, and that didn't take effect until 1981. That's why I'm here. Before this becomes a lengthy appeal, I'm asking for one thing: a single meeting to review the property as a duplex the town permitted to become in 1980 with the staff, the historical file, and the 79 code book that actually applied, all on the table together. Despite many conversations over the past several months, that meeting has never happened. If after the view the town still believes the determination is correct, the appeal process moves forward, and I respect it. But the historical record supports what the town permitted in 1980. I'd rather resolve it now. This has had a real cost for my family. We have like a new mortgage, young daughter, a newborn baby that was born on July 10th. And I'd rather be running my business and being with them than spending my nights on a 1979 code book. So I'm asking for a meeting, and if there's anything you could do, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there other public comments for items not on the agenda?
Good evening. My name's John Guffey, 561 Chapin Lane. I just have three things, and they're a little detailed. But the first is trash receptacles that waste management dumpsters, visible from the street across the community, particularly in neighborhoods of residential homes. I feel this is a direct violation, if you will, of common decency that allows a major vehicle, huge vehicle that makes a lot of noise, both backing up and going forward, entering yards, but particularly the visible effect of a dumpster, 2-yard, these are steel, big enough to put a lot of trash in, that homes sometimes feel the necessity of having for their own personal trash handling. And I know there's a second carrier besides Waste Management, Superior for one, that does it in a much more gracious manner. This isn't to blame Waste Management for the problem, but I do think it goes against the values of this community to post up a trash can that's that big in your front yard, or even just at the back of your driveway, visible from the street. It's an annoyance, and it's an inconvenience, and it's very disturbing. The second thing is the Dark Sky Initiative, which I think is a wonderful opportunity for this community to follow the lead of Rocky Mountain National Park, not to follow the discouraging element of light that comes up from the valley and says, you know, hey, you guys you don't count. We get to make the light around here. I think Estes Park is a leader and needs to assert itself and say, dark sky is a healthy sky. We're protecting nocturnal ecosystems. That's what we're about, taking care of our relationship with nature. And if we can accomplish that here in Estes, other communities will be led to think differently about their own preposterous amount of light that's emitted into the night sky. But we have to start here, and we have to follow the lead of the park, which is already asserting some sense of the whole. And we're just not there. I think the opportunity is with us now, and I'd love to see the town board show more initiative. I'm just not hearing enough about next steps, where we go from here. How do we take the lead? Why don't we stop standing on the sidelines? The third thing is noise. I had a huge disruption of my life experience the other day, and I called the police secondary dispatch, not 911, but I was told that a police officer could contact me, and I said, wait a minute, I don't want to disrupt their busy schedule. I'd rather schedule just a time to speak to the chief. So he called me a few days later.
And John,
we talked about it.
We're at 3 minutes. So thank you. Any other public comments, items not on the agenda? We can move to the town board comments, liaison reports. Trustee Eshelman.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Brown.
Well, first of all, you stole my thunder about the Arts District with the proclamation and everything that's going on here in August, so I won't speak any more of that, but it is a full month of arts for sure. I'm going to report on the Housing Authority, not because I'm liaison anymore, but I happened to go to the Housing Authority meeting as a member of the public. Frank was there, Frank Lancaster, and he's not here tonight, so he asked me to give a report. So there were a couple things of note. First of all, there have been 14 applications submitted for 3 openings on the board of the Housing Authority. They're kind of deferring interviews partially because Trustee Lancaster's out of town and they want to figure out how they're going to deal with so many applications, whether there'll be a screening process or not, or whether they'll interview all 14. So that's one thing. Secondly, Housing Authority is moving their offices in mid-August to Skyview in the area of the Fall River Village development. There's also apparently a glitch with the fish hatchery project. Not sure I quite understand it. Something to do with the water and the water supply. So that will undoubtedly work itself out in a while. And finally, they're going to look at the employee handbook going forward. Because of the difficulty of finding employees, they're at least considering whether relatives of current employees would be hireable. Haven't made a decision on that, but they'll deal with that at their next board meeting. The only other thing was I was around yesterday for Congressman Goose was here, went to a number of things. He had Congress on the corner, I think he called it, where he took public comment. He went to the swearing in of the fire district new chief. So there was a lot of things going on with Congressman Goose yesterday. And finally, I just want to comment on one thing that Mr. Guffey mentioned, that we have a changed circumstance on Cleve Street. We've had for years, it's been more of an alley that people have used to make deliveries and do all that, and they have had their dumpsters out there, not screened in any way. And now that we've improved Cleve Street, and there are more improvements to come, I think we need to review that and get on that and provide a pathway for those business owners to comply with our rules concerning dumpsters. That is all I have.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton.
Yeah, the Visit Estes Park Board met on July 16th. A portion of that meeting was a presentation from Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally. in particular talking about budget shortfalls for the county. This was a special agenda item upon her request, really to start engaging the public in the process of the county trying to balance their budget, in particular related to shortfalls that are, trickling down from the federal and state level. So good presentation and discussion. She wants to engage as much of the Estes Valley as possible, and I think that's a really important piece. So if you go to chooselarimersfuture.org, there's a lot of great information, opportunity to submit your input. You can even read other comments that other folks have submitted, which is always educational and sometimes entertaining. But it's a great way to be engaged with what's happening on the county level, which obviously impacts what's happening here in Estes. And a lot of the conversation surrounded, certainly our critical support services and roads and bridges, lots of talk about fire mitigation and water, all of those things that we're talking about on a more micro level here as well. Also at that meeting, we always hear stats from our chief financial officer, and did get some information about June looking like occupancy from the short-term rentals looked down for the month in June, and so far year to date, average daily rate and RevPAR were both significantly up. It's interesting because we're hearing from lodging properties that July has been a pretty insane and banner month from an occupancy and a RevPAR standpoint. So it'll be interesting to see how those numbers come in. Lodging tax collections on the whole, the year is up 11% year over year. That means we're about 11.5% up on our budget year to date, and our expenses are all under budget. So sitting in a nice spot financially over at Visit Estes Park. We did have a little bit of discussion about consideration for some of those increases and decreases. Obviously with lodging tax collections, if the average rate is up, our tax goes up. So consideration of what's happening in the market, and paying close attention to that occupancy rate, as I mentioned. Final thing for Visit Estes Park is we do have a board position that will be coming up at the end of this year, and that's for Sean Jurgen's seat. He is term limited, so we are going to be looking for folks to apply for that position. Those should open very soon, so please consider applying or spreading the word if you know of someone who would be a good applicant. We'll be getting all that information out, but wanted to plant the seed tonight. Also, the board's representative for CAST, and I asked the town clerk to forward just this afternoon, so I'm sure it'll come later this week, a regional statistical analysis project that we just got, which is basically a fancy way of saying here's what's going on in the rural, resort, and mountain communities, and how it's being dealt with. So about a 50-page report, very digestible. It verifies a lot of what I think we know or suspect, but it has some really good intel about how communities are addressing or discussing the balance of tourism and community quality of life, as well as how they're addressing things like affordable and attainable housing, all of the usual suspects. So that's on the public email portal. I'm also happy to send it directly to anyone who is interested, but I encourage the board to take a peek at that. Also had an opportunity to spend some time with Congressman Hughes yesterday, and just wanted express my thanks that as our representative, he spends a lot of time in Estes and with our community, and I'm thankful for that. And finally, I just wanted to end on kind of a fun, happy note. I meant to discuss this at the last meeting, but I neglected to include it on my list. Many of you maybe have heard about this group called Global Friends, and it's primarily organized by Jamie Palmisano that we all know from Brownfields. And it's kind of an additional support group for our exchange visitors and workers in the community, managed by Jamie and some interns. It's a national organization. She's got a few interns that are helping out with it. Brownfield's very involved. I think it's Estes Park Christian Church is involved as well. But it's a way to provide a social outlet and community support for our exchange visitors. So it's pretty incredible to watch the work that they're doing. And there's been a few pieces about it in the papers, and I just wanted to celebrate Jamie and give kudos to all of those folks who have been involved, because we've got local families hosting dinners for 60 to 80 kids. I say kids, but students. They're going to get ice cream. They're having game nights. Mustang Mountain Coaster hosted about 100 of them for free mountain coaster rides the other night. And that was all. They had rides coordinated to make sure all these kids could get to where they needed to go. it's just, we've spent some time talking about the Estes Valley's level of hospitality, and I think this is just such a fabulous way to show what we're all about. So I just wanted to give Jamie kudos and recognize that combined with the community support group efforts that are going on, and I know Mayor Hall's involved with those, I'm just really impressed with how our community is showing up. So just wanted to share that happiness. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Eigel.
Thanks. I have just a quick, maybe a little update from the fire district. Yesterday, somebody alluded to it, there's a change of command ceremony where Chief Warren Jones, who's been here for about 10 months to help us with finding a new permanent chief, was successful in that project, and he's winding down. He pinned a badge that was on his jacket with the new chief's jacket, Chief Kevin Nunn, N-U-N-N. He's the new fire chief in Estes Park, so he'll serve the community. He had a great message yesterday as he came in about hope, and not just about fire trucks, and not just about doing the job by the rules, but he had a great message of hope and for the community and for people that the fire district is serving. So I saw a lot of optimism, having been with the fire district myself for 35 years. I've seen cycles, and this feels good. And it's good to see someone coming in that's got the support of the membership. We're good operationally. So I just wanted to share that accolade for Chief Jones as he goes out, and a welcome from the town to Chief Nunn as he comes in. If you have an opportunity, he says he has an open door policy like the big doors by the fire trucks. So if you see those open and you want to wander in and meet him, he put it in the paper, so I suppose it's true. And stop by and meet Chief Nunn if you have an opportunity. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Maris.
All right, Mayor, the Police Auxiliary had their monthly meeting, and I just want to commend that group on all the hard work they're doing in supporting all of our Estes Park events. They're also going to support the National Night Out, which is August 4th, and that's a night to promote community safety and also the police and community partnerships. So if you have a chance, go ahead and look online for that.
You guys covered everything I would have covered. And so I'll just predict the future. 5 years from now, Chief Nunn still loves his job. We still love him. We're all safe from fire. Superintendent Grubbs over at the school, all of the test scores have gone up significantly, substantially 5 years from now, and so on and so forth. You get my point. We are at a time of change. There have been a lot of changes, but many of them are in very positive directions. So this is a good time. I hope that we continue this string of success. Okay, we'll move on to the town administrator report.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Board. I want to start with recognizing our streets and parks crews for their work to address runoff-related issues with our recent rains. We're all happy to see rain this time of year. It creates some consequences when it comes down as quickly and as concentrated as it has the last week and this week. So continued support for those folks that are out there clearing ditches and addressing washouts throughout the town. It's hard work, and it's kind of frustrating when you clean it up and then you come back half a week later and it's silted up again. Secondly, I want to recognize our power and communications crew. Not an omen. We were very clear about that, but at the start of the fire chief ceremony, the WAPA transmission lines to Estes Park had another issue. You'll recall a few weeks ago we had a similar issue. The entire valley was more or less out of power. Our crews, unfortunately, are getting pretty good at working with PRPA and our partners at WAPA to restore power, so power was restored quickly. I want to thank them for that. That is a big task when the entire distribution system goes down, of getting power restored quickly and safely. You're dealing with very dangerous equipment under a lot of pressure, and they did a great job. Lastly, I do have a policy governance monitoring report for you all. The July report is 3.3, 3.12, 3.13. I am reporting compliance with the exception of the organizational plan item in 3.13 that I previously reported to you. I was a meeting late in delivering that chart to you all. That was due at the first meeting of the new board, and it did not come to you until the subsequent meeting. Happy to answer any questions you might have about that report as a whole. That's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. I forgot my prediction that by 2031, you'll have been in the new safety building for 3 years, so there you go. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll read it in full into the record. There are 7 items. 1, expenditure approval list, bills. Item 2, town board meeting and study session minutes dated July 14, 2026. Item 3, Estes Park Planning Commission minutes dated May 19, 2026, and June 16, 2026, acknowledgement only. Resolution 85, Item 4, Resolution 8526, intergovernmental agreement among owner communities tasking Platte River Power Authority with coordination of distributed energy resource programs and projects. Item 5, Resolution 8626, intergovernmental agreements with Colorado Department of Transportation for NAAPME and MMOF grant funds for Moraine Avenue multimodal trail design and construction, $5,979,039.40 budgeted. Item 6, Law Enforcement Assistant Fund, LEAF, LEAF, SFY fiscal year 27 supplemental grant award to purchase impaired driving enforcement and education equipment for the Estes Park Police Department. And item 7, acceptance of town administrator policy governance monitoring report. Does any member of the public, including the town board, wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing
Mayor,
none? Oh, go ahead.
I actually have no request to remove anything, and I appreciate that there's a line item for when I do. So, thanks.
Well, in that case, we will take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Trustee Eshelman moved to approve the consent agenda as written. Trustee Brown seconded, and we'll vote. There we go. Okay, consent agenda passes. We have one report and discussion item from outside entities, and that's our Salud Family Health, so important to our community. And they will be presenting the 2025 base funding report. And we have President and CEO Santa Stephen. And Doug, are you presenting too? Or okay, all right, off we go.
All right. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and the trustees, for this opportunity to give you an update. We had sent in a slide. I'm not sure if that's going to be presented or not.
I'll also mention while we're pausing that I know you've got that August 12th opportunity, kind of an open house in the morning, 8 to 10 on August 12th over at Salud. Is it okay for me to mention it here in public?
Please.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be there.
All right. As the mayor mentioned, August 12th, we're having a Salud Family Health Day across the state of Colorado. Salud Family Health, we run 13 clinics in 10 different communities. So we're having light breakfast tours. Our staff give more information about the services we provide. So we're looking forward to that day. So start off with, our mission is to provide a quality integrated healthcare home to the communities we serve. Here's our current clinic at 1950 Red Hawk Drive. There's a little update to it. We got a new roof on it, so the new roof's more brown color than a green, but we had a new roof put on it this year just because how long we've been there, wear and tear. So next slide, please. Up and down, okay. Okay, so then this is just our core values, and these are really what we have on the walls of all our clinics, and we really live these core values on how we want to provide health care and treat the individuals that come through our doors. So Okay. Salute in Estes Park, I'm sorry, we were founded, the organization, in 1970 in Fort Lupton as a migrant house center. And so we've grown from that, like I said, to 13 sites and then different communities. So this is, again, the service area of Salute. We have clinics in Aurora, Brighton, Commerce City, Estes Park, Fort Collins, Fort Lupton, Fort Morgan, Frederick, Longmont. We have a mobile unit. We're Sterling and Trinidad. The thing that's unique about Salute, there's 21 house centers in the state of Colorado, is that we run large urban centers and smaller rural centers. So that's pretty unique for house centers to have that type of a base. Estes Park, we opened our first clinic in 1992. I remember I'm going to be with Salute in September for 30 years, and I remember visiting that first site, coming up here, and they said, wow, we got a clinic in Estes Park, and there was one small exam room, I would say 8 by 8, and then a really small waiting room that was probably smaller than that. And I walked away and said, wow, I guess that is a clinic. And so we've been here for 34 years in the community. We're committed to staying in the community. We've had significant expansion through the years, and we're hoping to expand. Times have been challenging, but we're not here to reduce healthcare. We're here to expand healthcare to the community members. So, and then the staff members that we have up here, we have 16 total staff members here at our Commerce City Clinic, and that's just kind of staffing. A key part is we practice an integrated care model where we provide medical, dental, behavioral health, pharmacy services, care management, those type of things, services. So it's kind of a one-stop under one roof. And when we have people visit us, they really ask us, why isn't this the primary care model for the country? And it really should be, where people can get all those services under one's roof. So this gives you a breakdown of our demographics. In 2025, we saw 1,699 patients, accounted for about 6,900 visits. And you can see by line item, behavioral health was about 1,075, dental 1,200, dental hygienist did about 682, and medical was about 3,900 for, again, the total visits of 3,914. And then on the right, you can see just a breakdown of the ages of the individuals we see. So again, we see everyone from, newborns all the way to the elderly. So that gives you a break. Now, this next part where on the bottom left on poverty level is really important to highlight. So when you look at it, 100% of the federal poverty level, that means an individual is making $15,000, or a family of 4 is making a maximum of $31,200. So just think how hard that is for a family of 4 to make a living to do that. And when you look at, the patients we serve, 49% of the patients we see at our clinic are at 100% or below the federal poverty level. So then you take it to the next level, which is 101 to 200, 35% of our patients there. And again, an individual would have a maximum of 30,000, family of 462, and then above 200% of the poverty level, it's 16%. So then on the bottom right is our payer mix. Medicaid, we do 32%. Medicaid is the #1 revenue source for community house centers across the country, and that is for Salute as well. Last year when I was up here and we were having significant financial challenges, and that was because of the significant decrease in Medicaid, because of the Medicaid unwind. And so what's on the horizon now is HR 1, which, there's significant more requirements of enrolling twice in Medicaid, work requirements and such. So that I'll get more into that challenge that's coming up for us. But getting back to our payer mix, Medicare is 8%, CHIP's 3%, dental CHIP is 14%, commercial insurance is 17%, and our uninsured population base is 26%. So we do take all insurances and see all different payer sources. This is just a long list of the Salute services we provide at the clinic. I won't go through all these, but you can see that there's numerous services we provide at our site. You know, the challenges that we're facing, and it's just community house centers across the country, is, you know, we do get a federal grant that is about $13 million. Our budget now is pushing $110 million. That 13 million has been 13 million for 16 years. And as we have grown, that grant has not grown with us. And then we're facing, you know, significant inflation. So those dollars just don't go as far. So that's one of the significant challenges. And then, you know, Medicaid coverage, as I mentioned, the HR 1 is coming up. There's estimates that we could see a decrease as much of, well, we were originally estimating 10 to 15%. If it was a 10% cut, it would be 3.5 million in lost revenue to us. Now, as we're learning more about how the bill is going to be implemented, we're thinking that increase is going to be somewhere maybe 30, 40%. It's going to be significant. And so it's going to add a challenge back to us. And, you know, again, one of the challenges is health inflation. Workforce recruitment, retention in primary care is always a challenge. Especially in rural areas, you know, it's difficult to recruit. We're competing with rural communities across the country for providers. When providers are interviewing, they're interviewing with rural communities and house centers all across the country. And then we know the cost of living in rural areas, and especially in Estes Park, can be are high. And then just the patients changing demographics. Like to talk a little bit about the Estes Parks Salute Foundation. You know, they're committed community members, and they, you know, last year set the goal of raising $500,000, and they raised $500,000. This year we have a current goal of trying to raise $250,000, and those dollars really have helped us balance our budget, and they pay for things like 50% of a patient's copay services, including labs, specialty visits, medicines. You can receive free dental care if you're pregnant or a child under 17 years old, and receive free eye exams. So that's really, really important to us. Before I get into the thank you, I want to give a little bit of an upgrade of how we're doing financially, because, you know, last year I was here and I was, you know, saying, hey, we're projecting we're going to be losing somewhere around $12 million this year. Our fiscal year end just ended May 31st, so we got our financial statements done. We're to the good about $300,000. So on, you know, 119 million, I think that's 0.3%, but that's a lot better than a negative 12 million. So we worked really hard to balance that budget. You know, the things that helped us was, again, fundraising from the foundation and the Estes Park community. The state came up with the Save Our Safety Net Fund, which Salute benefited about 3.5 million from that in additional state dollars. So that was very important in a time when we know the state budget is challenging. The state still came up with dollars, recognizing how important community house centers are to their communities we serve. And then we had some back payments from Medicaid that were about 4 million. So again, really good from that standpoint. We haven't had to lay off any staff, cut any significant services, and that was our goal. And like I say, our goal right now is trying to maintain, but at some points we hope to get back to expanding our services. So.
Yeah, last year I kind of pictured you as the captain on the boat, and the waves are washing over it and everything, and it's like, when's it going to go down? It's going to, and just terrific work in the last year with getting the message out. Terrific work from the community for helping support Doug. You've been a great voice all along the way. So thank you for your steady hand on that rocking boat. And I know the challenges aren't over. You've just described them as to some of the things that are coming. But great work. It's such a prized part of the community for obvious reasons.
Yeah. And you know, like I mentioned, been doing this for 30 years. That boat's always rocking. There's only a couple years where we say, well, we're going to have smooth sailings. It's always a challenge. But
we need to buy you one of those big raincoats they wear on. Yeah. So. Well, thanks. Other comments? Yeah.
Yeah, ditto what Mayor Hall said on that regard. I had two quick questions, hopefully. One is on the, one of your slides, it showed for 2025 that behavioral health visits were at just over 1,000, it looks like. Off the top of your head, do you know if that's up, down, or flat from year to year?
It's probably flat.
Okay, okay.
Our services have been pretty flat.
Okay, thank you. And then I also, you mentioned that the patient demographics changing. Any information about what those changes are?
We're seeing less children probably in our clinics, less prenatal care and more, I guess, elderly visits, yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Which is maybe the change of our population overall. Trustee Brown?
Well, thank you. I'm sure some of those numbers were for Salute all over because they're too big for just Estes.
correct.
But we've heard stories of big shortfalls to keep the Estes clinic open. And I'm sure that fits into the larger picture as well. What are your plans looking like for the current fiscal year to be able to break even?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, right now, if we were where we're at right now, we would be at a break-even point. But then when, you know, as I mentioned, HR 1 kicks in January, the
Could be
game
worse.
changes. So just depending on how hard we get hit with that, it will have to adapt again. And so, yeah.
Okay, and another question. I have been advocating for some financial help for Salud from the Estes Valley Hospital. And I'm wondering if there have been any discussions or any hope that UC Health might be willing to entertain that. Because I know that one state fund is explicitly stated to be a temporary funding source. So you can't necessarily count on it from year to year. And we're in a really unique situation to have a hospital that gets $4.5 million a year from taxpayers for support. And of course, we want to keep the hospital for sure, but it seems to me that Salud is part of the whole ecosystem of healthcare in the community, and it should figure out a way to integrate. But is there any hope for any discussions with UC Health about that?
You know, I meet with Kevin Unger, who's the CEO of the Northern Colorado UC Health, and I just met with him again this morning. So we are in conversations. There, I can't say there's a pathway at this point in time, but we are continuing conversations, knowing that both entities are needed in this community to provide health care. So, so we're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions and comments? Thank you, John. for
Okay,
the
just
great
thank
work.
you, and really thank, you know, the Estes Park community for stepping up. We really appreciate it, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to Planning Commission items. Item 1 is an action item, and let me do this right, actually. Because these next 3 items will each be public hearings. So the next order of business is the public hearing on Planning Commission Action Item 1, Resolution 8726, Fall River Village 2, Combined Preliminary Final Planned Unit Development Plan, Estes Park Housing Authority, owner applicant. At this hearing, the Board of Trustees shall consider the information presented during the public hearing from the town staff, from the applicant, public comment, and written comments received on the application. Has any trustee had any ex parte communications concerning the application which are not part of the board packet? I see none. Any member of the board may ask questions at any stage of the public hearing, which may be responded to at that time. This public hearing is open, and it looks like we've got Paul to give us a staff report.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and trustees. So a little background on this project. Fall River Village consists of 2 parcels. It includes 88 units, as well as an event facility that were all previously approved as part of a planned unit development, or PUD. and it has an underlying zoning of commercial outline. A PUD is a zoning overlay that allows for flexibility in certain development standards. The upper northern property is the subject of this application. It contains 24 units as well as the event facility. The development was used for short-term overnight rentals previously until the Housing Authority purchased it in 2024 and began leasing to members of the workforce. The Housing Authority also has plans for a childcare facility, as well as converting, as we've heard tonight, part of the event facility to an office, as well as some storage areas in the office to serve residents and the office. So the 24 units and event facility are located on a single 3.8 acre parcel, and it is proposed to be subdivided into 14 townhome lots. One lot would have an 8-unit building on it. There would be one duplex lot and one lot for the event facility / office. The subdivision application is the preceding agenda item tonight. Most of the desired uses within the PUD are currently permitted under the existing PUD, as it does allow for multifamily, two-family residential dwellings, government offices, and daycare. The PUD amendment is necessary to address some non-conforming items which would occur with the subdivision, as well as to make some minor changes to those allowed uses. So I'll now run through those proposed changes. The lot size permitted currently is 40,000 square feet minimum. The development code allows the town board to approve smaller townhome lots, which can be done through the subdivision process. However, 3 of the lots do not qualify as townhomes, and as such, the applicant has requested a waiver for the lot size on those 3 lots. The code also requires building envelopes be included on subdivision plats for townhomes. Given that this is already built out, developed project, the applicant requests a waiver to that requirement. Townhome projects are not required to comply with building setbacks for properties which are internal to the project. However, again, there are 3 lots which do not qualify as townhome lots. Lots 1, 12, and 17 would be subject to a 15-foot setback. The PUD requests a waiver to allow a 0-foot setback for those 3 lots, generally in the highlighted yellow areas. However, the lots would have setbacks of 1 to 2 feet and approximately 7 feet. Setbacks to areas outside of the development do remain compliant with development code minimums. The minimum parking requirements are met for the residential units, future daycare, as well as the office. The event facility is a little more complicated. The development code requires a parking study for such facilities and does not provide a minimum parking requirement, but instead relies on that study. The applicant did prepare a study which recommends a ratio of 1 space per 3 event attendees. There's no industry standard for event facilities. However, 2 to 4 per vehicle is often used, so they are within that range. So next, determining the occupancy of that building. We rely on the building code, which would allow a maximum of 135 people. Using the 1 to 3 ratio, that would require 45 spaces. And ultimately, that results in a deficit of between 14 to 25 parking stalls. And that range is due to the office hours being, when the office is closed, those additional spaces would be available. So to address the deficit, the applicant does propose limitations on occupancy of that event facility, 59 people during office hours and 97 during non-office hours. Also, a parking waiver requested regarding on-site parking. Most of the units do have driveways and garages to provide the required on-site parking. However, there are certain lots which would rely on common parking, and the areas highlighted in yellow are general parking available to all. So the event facility, as well as some of the residential units, do not have specific reserved parking, so a waiver is requested to allow parking in the common area. Loading, the development code requires off-street loading. Waiver is requested to this requirement due to the size and needs of the uses, not warranting large delivery vehicles. A sidewalk runs through the property from along Sunny Acres Court and has stairs leading from the upper property to the lower property and ultimately connects down to the trail along the river. The PUD application originally requested a waiver to any sidewalk requirement along Farview Drive. However, Public Works has since determined that sidewalks are not required under the development code, rendering that waiver request unnecessary. On the land uses, as mentioned, a government office is an allowed use. However, the PUD would expand that to all office uses to be allowed. Similarly, the warehouse and storage would be added to accommodate storage for residents and the office users. And lastly, would clarify a special review is not required for the event facility as it's already previously been approved. Advantages of the application is the fact that it does comply with relevant development code standards, which I'll run through now. Criteria 1 requires consistency with the code and comprehensive plan. The application does implement goals of the comp plan related to workforce housing. Standard 2 deals with mitigating adverse impacts to neighboring properties. No adverse impacts are anticipated. However, the overall parking demand, the proposed for shared parking could potentially create negative impacts if the parking demand is greater than anticipated with the event facility. However, it will be lower than the previous use for weddings. If parking does become an issue, an HOA and/or management company would likely need to address through reserved parking, parking permits, and/or enforcement. And should fire lanes be blocked, that would involve enforcement from the town and potentially fire district to resolve. Standard number 3 requires integration with adjacent streets, sidewalks. As an existing development, those connections do already exist. Standard 4 requires all relevant standards be met, with the exception of any waivers granted in the PUD. Standard 5 expands upon those modifications or variances from standards. And Standard 6 requires public benefits that a typical development could not accomplish without the PUD. And as mentioned, this PUD does provide workforce housing as a community benefit. Since the application complies with relevant review criteria, no disadvantages have been identified. I will try to summarize the applicability of Ordinance 1125 here, and may also rely on Attorney Kramer for some guidance. It is staff's interpretation that that ordinance is not applicable due to the state statutes as well as the timing of this application. The application was submitted prior to the vote on the ordinance, and the Colorado Revised Statutes does state an application for approval of a site-specific development plan shall be governed only by the duly adopted laws and regulations in effect at the time the application is submitted. And the development code does include a final PUD as a site-specific development plan. At their May meeting, the Planning Commission did forward a recommendation of approval of the combined preliminary final PUD plan, subject to the condition below, that parking shall be managed by the Owners Association. I do want to point out this condition was inadvertently omitted from the resolution, So if the board wants to include this condition, it should be done through the motion, which I've provided a sample of. The PUD will have little to no impact on town finances or resources. Public notice was done in accordance with Development Code requirements. We have received one formal public comment regarding landscaping and dark sky lighting that is included in the packet materials. Sample motions provided for your reference. The applicants are present and have a presentation for you as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Before I open it up to the trustees, I'll open it up to the public. If any member of the public will be given the opportunity to address the board concerning this application. Are there any comments? Yes. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. My name is David Shirk, and I live at 301 Farview Drive. And I have to respectfully disagree that there will be, the staff's comment, there would be no adverse impacts on the neighborhood. And I'll describe why here. If you'd like to follow along with my letter, it starts at page 177 in your board packet. I'm here to speak to the PUD development plan. My request is narrow. Require additional landscaping buffering along the road and require exterior lighting to comply with development code. And I do have to apologize, I was not able to attend previous meetings, so I'm here making these comments tonight. Chapter 13 of the development code defines development plan to include a change of use of land or a structure, and make no mistake, this is a change of use. Chapter 4 identifies accommodations and multifamily residential as separate uses. Both those uses are allowed on the property, but the use is changing from one code-defined use to another. The application should therefore comply with development code standards. Not only is this technically a change of use, the change is also material. In practice, accommodation uses in Estes Park tend to be most heavily used during the tourist season, when the days are longest and exterior lighting is needed for the fewest hours. Residential use is year-round, including fall and winter, when it gets dark much earlier and exterior lighting operates for longer periods. That creates a different operational impact on the neighborhood. Section 710 directly addresses operational compatibility. It allows the decision-making body to impose conditions on development to ensure compatibility with existing uses. It specifically identifies the location, intensity, and hours of illumination, along with additional landscaping and buffering. Those are exactly the conditions I am requesting. Section 7.5 establishes landscaping and buffering standards, and I did include some photos in the letter that I provided. Section 7.5 F3 specifically provides that, and I quote, existing land uses may be required to provide buffering if the use is changed, expanded, enlarged, or in any other way increases the impacts on adjacent properties. And the photos that I submitted do show a largely untreated roadway edge along Farview Drive. Section 7.9 requires exterior lighting to be evaluated during development review and establishes standards for shielding, cutoff angles, glare, and off-site illumination. I asked the board to condition approval on two things. I asked the board to condition approval on two things. First, a revised landscape plan that adds appropriate screening along Farview Drive, and second, documented compliance with Section 7.9 for all exterior lighting, with any non-compliant fixtures replaced or modified. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. At this point, is there any other public comment? Yes.
Christine Poppett, 650 Devon Drive. I'm here for two reasons, both related to obviously the Fall River Village PUD and the subsequent trail or sidewalk. Ordinance 1125 applies to all PUDs and rezonings. The town board is the decision-making body for this, and I request that you apply the law, Ordinance 1125, to this new PUD application. If this were a minor amendment, this could possibly be debated and ultimately decided by you, the town board. However, as per Senior Planner Hornbeck, as noted in the public record and meeting minutes, this is a major amendment. Thus, requiring a new application, public notice, neighborhood meeting, planning commission meeting, and now, again to you, the decision-making body. Please apply the law. Additionally, as a new PUD application, the decision-making body, you, can make any changes, conditions, alterations, or changes to findings from any previous PUD applications or prior applications. In the statement of intent submitted by Pete Levine of the Housing Authority on page 305, item number 8, a request for a waiver of sidewalks on Farview Road was submitted. Per the Estes Park Development Code, section 10.5D1A, sidewalks, pedestrian connections, and trails, a waiver is not needed because the Estes Park Development Code states that the town board gets to decide to the maximum extent feasible if it has been fulfilled for pedestrian linkages. I do believe that it has not. And again, it is up to you to make a change in findings. Again, it is a new application. It is major. A PUD cannot request waivers. Those go directly to Board of Adjustments. It was just mentioned that Public Works determined that it was not required that a trail or sidewalk be built. That is news to me in the research that I did. Again, I'm citing what is in the code. And I ask that you as the decision-making body make your decision. We have an Estes Valley Trails Plan that clearly delineates the future of trails connectivity in the Estes Valley is crucial. I'm requesting you require a sidewalk or a trail to connect from Farview Lane to West Wonderview Avenue. While it is common knowledge that there's not a trail there yet, connectivity is needed throughout town. I see, sorry. In Mr. Levine's statement of intent, quote, "It has been determined in the prior project that that was not necessary. I ask that the Housing Authority and Mr. Levine please provide proof of this prior determination." Again, as this is a new PUD application, you are the decision-making body with the right to make changes, including previous findings, if any, that have yet to be substantiated. This is a great opportunity to meet the goals of the Estes Valley Trail Plans and continue new trails to increase connectivity throughout our valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I went over, sorry.
Prior to having the trustees Q&A, the applicant or senior planner Hornbeck can rebut or make additional comments.
I will just pull up their presentation and turn it over to them.
Hello, trustees. My name is Pete Levine. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development here for the Housing Authority. I'll start with the addressing the public comments, and then I have about a 10-minute presentation to show. So when it, oops, that one didn't get in there. Sorry. So when it comes to the lighting and the landscaping, we're happy to do that. That's something that we've been planning to do, particularly on the lighting side when it comes to exterior lighting, to go through a programmatic update of the exterior lighting that's associated with it. Our plan ideally is to try to do that over the span of 2 or 3 years to enable us to receive appropriate funding from Efficiency Works and other organizations that specialize in energy efficiency and dark sky lighting. So we understand that that's a pressing need and a goal and priority of the community. So we are already been planning actually to upgrade and replace some of those light fixtures. And so we're happy to do it. We would just request a longer time period to allow us to try to maximize the other funding that's out there. From a landscaping plan, we are also happy to add buffering along Farview Drive there. I had a couple of supplemental slides here that showed it, but the previous PUD had an approval of 6 shrubs and 2 trees that were along Farview Drive. Based on looking at satellite views, it doesn't look like those were ever planted for whatever reason, and so we're committed as the Housing Authority to go and plant those trees and shrubs that were previously approved as part of the PUD along Farview Drive. When it comes to the the trail. We believe that the trail right now and the sidewalks are suitably connected. We have from that upper parcel in Fall River Village, we have 2 staircases that go down and connect directly with Fall River Trail right at Performance Park, and so it has direct connectivity into downtown as well as out to the west along the Fall River Trail there. Based on the previous PUD that was approved, that is the proof and the evidence that the previous town board did not require that additional connectivity along Farview Drive, because that would have been an opportunity back when 2018, when that current PUD that's on file that was approved, that would have been an opportunity to have that additional requirement. The fact that they didn't is proof that the town board determined that that additional connectivity was not necessary, and so our request would be to stick with the determination that was made for a private for-profit developer who is catering their development to tourists, and not add an additional burden on workforce housing for the community. In addition to the fact that for this PUD amendment as well as subdivision, we're not planning to put a shovel in the ground. This is purely things that lines on a paper and use changes. We're not planning any type of construction other than putting in fire blocking in some of the townhomes to make sure that we are aligning with the fire code that is required when you create property lines in between 2 existing units. So from the presentation standpoint, just wanted to go through this. It's relatively quick, about 10 minutes or so. Hopefully can shed a little bit light on project background for some trustees who weren't present as we were going through this process, purchasing process back in 2024, and also can provide a little bit more context of why we're looking to amend this PUD and the ultimate goal. So the property was purchased in October 2024 for $35 million. There's 2 parcels, as Paul had shown. There's the lower parcel, which is 65 units, and then the upper parcel. So it's only the upper parcel that we're discussing here today. The upper parcel contains 14 townhome units. It has a building with 8 one-bedroom units. It has a building with 4 bedrooms and a 1-bedroom unit. That's been known as the Cliff House, as well as Skyview. The property as well received $7 million of Prop 123 equity from the state that's specific to the lower parcel. So that Prop 123 equity has nothing to do with the upper parcel, which is what we're reviewing today. That was only applicable to the lower parcel and is still in place today. From a background standpoint, even before the Housing Authority was involved, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, known as CHAFA, they were originally engaged to purchase the property as part of the sale of the Stanley Hotel to the state. I think them being a state entity and the sale of the state was something that brought them involved. CHAFA decided not to purchase the property as it falls outside of their business model. They are the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, but to my knowledge, they don't own any property except for their office, which they're actually in the process of selling right now. Their main business is providing funding to housing authorities or other developers who are trying to put a dent in the affordable or workforce housing issue that we face here in the community as well as across the state. Once CHAFA decided not to purchase the property, the Estes Park Housing Authority became involved with the seller as well as CHAFA regarding the potential purchase. So we purchased the property in October of 2024, and we began operating the property as workforce housing in early 2025. From a funding structure, the purchase price was $35 million. We received $7 million of Prop 123 equity from the state. The current loan balance is about $29 million, and we were able to receive tax-exempt bonds, which came with a significantly below market interest rate at 4.8%. At the time, if you were going to get a taxable bond, it was probably going to be in the 6% range, and now it's probably even gone up a bit more. We also have a debt reserve fund at $2.5 million and operating reserve at $450,000 to help cover some of these expenses. In addition, there was the workforce regulatory linkage fee was pledged to the project for 7 years. This was 2 years of previous accrual plus 5 years into the future. The 6E funds and the workforce linkage fees are initial backstops. for any payment that is required. There is the moral obligation from the town of Estes Park to fund the debt service reserve if a shortfall falls below the required threshold. That was very generous of the town to be able to provide, and was something that enabled us to receive a quality tax-exempt interest rate at 4.8%, which would have been higher if that commitment was not made. So our goal for the property, is with the goal of many of our developments, is to provide workforce housing at below market rates. For this particular development or this particular property, the rental rates currently range between 60% and 80% of area median income. And I believe I still have a table that can show from a dollar value what that actually is. The Prop 123 rules contain a maximum blended income, or area median income, of 90% for the residents of the property. So that essentially means that we can't have a bunch of 120 people making 120% of AMI living in the property. Even though we have a 90% limit, our current AMI median is at 62%, and the mean is at 69%. Typically, we look at the median rather than the mean, because particularly those higher income earners can really start to skew the data once you start doing means as opposed to median. So our goal for the property is, A, to be able to provide that workforce housing below market rents, but we also need to make sure in the long term the property sufficiently supports itself. So in a basic sense, that just means revenues from rents minus the operating expenses minus the debt payment needs to be more than zero. If it's not more than zero, then there's money that needs to be invested and put in it year after year, and that's not our goal for any property, certainly not this one, and has never been the business plan. And additionally, our goal, while we have had funds committed, we don't want to use all of it. So our goal is to use less of the funding that was pledged for the project, both from 6E funds and the regulatory workforce short-term linkage fee. Sorry, that one's a bit of a mouthful. And so how are we going to achieve these goals? So at $35 million purchase price, the below market rental rates for our workforce housing results in an operational deficit. This isn't a surprise. This is something that we knew upon the purchase of the property and also in communication with town board prior to receiving the moral obligation. So the business plan communicated in 3 town board presentations in the summer of 2024 and a neighborhood meeting was to sell the high-value townhome units, which are 14 units, to pay down the debt principal to create a self-sufficient property. The subdivision creates flexibility to sell these individual units or also in bulk. The amended PUD and subdivision is a key step in preserving as many workforce housing units at below market rental rates as possible. Because really the goal comes down to those 65 units that are down below. So our goal is to sell roughly those 14 townhome units to allow the payment and the pay down of the debt principal. This will ensure that the property will not require ongoing subsidies and it will be healthy and self-sufficient. The goal is, and what this will preserve, is the workforce rental units at below market rate at all of the 65 units on the lower parcel, which is currently 100% occupied. The workforce housing rental units at below market rate for the 8 one-bedroom units as well on the upper parcel, because we plan to retain that 8-unit building. It transfers Skyview to a compatible use for livability and quality of life for the residents of the workforce housing. And then it also preserves the Cliff House, that's that duplex that has a 4-bedroom and 1-bedroom, to explore childcare solutions. So going into the Cliff House, our plan right now, we're exploring a childcare facility in partnership with the town and their childcare master facilities plan. Our plan, we've added language in the PUD to allow for a home-based childcare center because that is most likely the best fit given the existing buildings and infrastructure that are on site there. For Skyview, the first floor of Skyview is intended to be used for the Housing Authority office for the time being. Scott has emphasized a number of times that it's not intended to be our permanent home, but certainly at our current office, we are kind of packed at the gills, and quite frankly, I don't have any place to go when I come up here other than our conference room, which often has a number of other people hanging out with me. So we've also added language in the PUD that limits the capacity of Skyview as an event space, and we've also added limit in the PUD in conjunction recommendation with town staff that limits the operating hours of Skyview as an event center as well. For the sales strategy, we've received 2 broker opinions of values in March of 2026 for the buildings on the upper parcels. Both valuations actually came within 1% of each other, which was surprising, but also gave us a little bit more confidence of what the market is for a property like this. We received one valuation from a local broker and another from a national commercial broker, who was actually the brokerage that sold the property originally from the developer to the Stanley Hotel ownership. So again, our target is to sell 12 to 14 townhome units to right size the debt. This is the goal. It's what the broker opinion of value suggests. Our goal is to, ideally minimize what we need to sell, but again, we need to make sure that we right-size the debt and allow the property to be self-sufficient from an operational standpoint. So just to wrap it up, our goal, again, is to provide workforce housing at below market rents. The rental rates currently range from 60% to 80% of area median income. The Prop 123 rules contain a maximum blended income of 90% for residents of the property. Our current tenant AMI income is significantly lower than that 90% threshold. It's probably our goal to keep it lower as well. We're not looking to increase it significantly. And again, the goal at the end of the day is to ensure the property sufficiently supports itself, so the revenues minus the operating expenses minus the debt payment is greater than 0, which means it's a healthy property and we can move on to bigger and better things as a housing authority and a community. And for reference, here are the Larimer County AMI levels. These ones are from last year. And then here is just a picture of the subdivision with the lot lines that we are reviewing as well.
So the very simple, if I can put it in one sentence, because those of us who were on the board at the time, went through all those different pieces and the 14 units, the sell-off in order to allow the other 65 to operate as workforce housing the way we wanted. This isn't going to be one sentence, but yeah, that piece has been hanging there now for, gosh, 1.5 years, 2 years. And so this PUD, this application, and the various waivers and changes are all aimed to make those 14 units sellable so that it accomplishes what you set out to do in the first place.
Yes, that is correct. So
basically subsidize the workforce housing down below. Is that accurate? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Other questions from the board or comments? Trustee Eichel.
I have several, and one came up just in the opening comments here, and I think it's going to go right to the attorney. What is the, what are we amending? This is a PUD amendment. What PUD are we amending?
Trustee Eigel, the way I've set up the resolution is in line with how I understood the application of the staff memo, which is that this is adoption of an amended PUD. So it's treated as though it's a new PUD. It's all the same standards that apply. So it's the, I guess it's a lawyer's difference, the difference between an amendment to something and an amended something.
Because this is not an amendment of the PUD that's in place.
My understanding, and Pete can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is a full and complete PUD application intended to meet all of the standards of review for a PUD, taking into account that there's an existing PUD on the property, but it's judged by all the same standards as a new PUD.
Okay, because public raised a good point that this is a new application. The original PUD was for a wedding venue, single owner, single property, single contact, single everything. So amending this, the changes are remarkable in this project from what that original PUD was. So I appreciate the clarification. So we're treating this as a new application.
Yes, Trustee Eigel, essentially because the code sets out the different applications that someone can make. And this was applied for as a combined preliminary and final planned unit development plan. So the standards of review that you saw from Planner Hornbeck are the same ones as for a new planned unit development plan.
Okay. When was the application submitted? What was do you remember when the date was? When that was submitted? Because there's some question, and I heard it come up tonight about whether this new ordinance applies and that the application was already in, so it's allowed. Was the application complete? Was it entirely submitted at that time, or was there any additions after the fact?
Yeah, it was a complete, full application received prior to that vote, yes.
Okay. Okay, well, those are just the comments I have.
July 30th, 2025.
She takes better notes than anyone up here. I appreciate that.
And just looking at the screen.
I appreciate that. Okay, those were just a couple of comments I have just from the opening remarks here. I've spent a lot of time on this weekend. And I want to begin by saying I support the concept of workforce housing. My focus tonight is on whether this application satisfies the findings of our development code that it requires us to make. These are permanent decisions. There's no going back. And the way it's set up tonight, we're going to make 3 big decisions that are irrevocable. These are not, we don't go back from these. We change the use of this land forever. So we are considering 3 interdependent actions. They all kind of build on each other. Our code normally contemplates that we would make these as separate decisions on separate days on a calendar that spreads it out, probably to allow for contemplation, for deliberation, for me to think about what happened, for new information to be brought at the next hearing. So why are we seeing all of these applications on one night?
Trustee Eigel, there's no requirement in the code regarding seeing these items on separate hearings, separate meetings. You're correct, especially preliminary and final plat are typically separated by a number of months. That's our practice to allow any changes that may occur from a preliminary plat to the final plat. Given that there are no real physical development proposed with this, it was viewed by staff as appropriate to consider back to back, but they are all separate agenda items to be considered independently.
They are, and I want to make that abundantly clear to the applicant, to the public, and to the board that these are 3 very independent actions that we are taking tonight. And Mr. Shirk spoke about there's not going to be any physical changes here, but this is a fundamental change of use. This completely changes the use of this property. To take this from a property that operates for a certain number of hours, a certain number of days, seasonality, and turning it into a year-round residential property completely changes this property. So I think that, without putting a shovel in the ground, as Pete said, this property changes. I can't emphasize that enough because as I go through all of these issues, the application refers back to there's not going to be any physical changes. There's not going to be any big changes, but it feels like fundamentally there are. Let me tell you about my primary concern on this issue, 8726. This PUD appears to maybe legalize existing conditions rather than do what I believe a PUD is intended to do, which is to create a superior development. So I have the sense after reading through this application, looking at the supporting documentation, paying attention to meetings for a long time, and only considering the information that pertains to this PUD amendment, it feels like we are looking backwards with a PUD to allow this project to proceed. So I have a little setup here and then a question for you, Paul, or Director Creccia. This application requests numerous deviations, undersized lots, 0 setbacks, parking off the lot, no building envelopes, and correct me if I make any misstatements here. I tried to take good notes, but I think it was late night. This load limited or occupancy limited event center, multiple waivers, and then it says there's no new construction. So if nothing is changing physically, what is the creative site design that you considered in presenting this to us to say that this is something you would support being approved?
Trustee Igo, I think the creative site design approach is the adaptive reuse of an existing facility that's being converted to workforce housing and requires the PUD to achieve that in order to sell the units.
So I want to, your language was important there. It requires a PUD to achieve that. And I think that PUDs, we have told the community that PUDs are opportunities to create future development or development down the road that will be complementary to the neighborhood. So I still feel like this is looking backwards to allow this to be used. Maybe this is for pontification and not really an answer, but I wonder if this application would be handled differently if it was a private developer, asking for the same changes, the same exceptions. So that's something that I'm contemplating. Pete or Scott, either one, I have a little setup and question for you about this application. Since the application changes ownership structure, allowed uses, parking allocations, event center operations, any kind of office use, daycare storage, but it maintains A accommodations zoning, creates A accommodation zoning, which would allow future STR rentals that would not be limited by the STR cap that we have in town. So if you have an STR and A accommodations, there's no limit. So each of these individual properties could be marketed as an STR without limit. It could be marketed that way. I would imagine it would increase the value. But I think that's going to fundamentally change how the property functions. And this is not going to set how the ownership will be down the road. This is going to allow for these changes. And do you think that it would be reasonable to expect that this meets every guideline for a PUD instead of asking for so many exceptions?
I won't stand here and say I'm an expert on the PUD
Nor
piece
am
of
I.
our development code.
Nor am I, right.
But I believe it substantively meets all the requirements. Yes.
Okay, so I would,
And I
I would disagree based on your application that it substantively meets all the requirements because there are a lot of requests for waivers and there are a lot of future bets on how the parking will work, how we will rely on an HOA in the future, how we will rely on private enforcement for rules. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Once this happens, we're not coming back from it. And this is a public property.
I can provide a little bit of color to that exact piece, a few of those, if you would like me to.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on my observations from this, and I don't want to take too much more of the trustees' time. I'm starting to feel like Bill Brown. So I'm going to stop where I'm at. And I only say that because we're friends. And so I'll let the microphone go. But I'm not going to if you're going to engage me in conversation.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple points. One on the HOA piece. So we have structured the HOA in a way, and Pete is over my shoulder, so you can correct me if I say anything wrong. Thank you. That EPHA will be in a position to operate the HOA for at least 30 years. And we do that currently at another one of our properties. And it's a very similar setup. So it will still be us as a management private entity operating that piece of the property.
But potentially, there may be 17 different owners on that property that you will not be one of.
We
If
will
you well, you will be, you will probably be. But as we have seen before in this room, we have approved projects that have changed substantially in ownership or future use. Because once we change the use in the zoning, it's your decision what you do with the property. So I'm very cautious, and I want to make sure we cross all the T's and dot the I's before we move forward with this step in the three that you're asking for.
Trustee Agel, I agree with that, and I think it's an appropriate level of insight and skepticism, as I'll call it here. But I will also stand here and say that EPHA and our board is committed to long-term ownership of all of our
I
properties.
understand committed in what you're saying in public, but if there's not a document, a contract, a law, or an agreement, or some part of this that says you will always own that and you will always have that, we're just having a gentleman's agreement. And I don't think that that holds enough to be able to support this, based on the evidence I've seen. So I will now yield.
Trustee Mears.
I have to say, I agree with Trustee Eigel, strangely. But just in the sense that to do a preliminary and a final on the same night for all three of these doesn't seem to allow for much change in between, or for much finessing of the agreements. I just have some granular questions. We are thinking about the event center, and we have your office going in there right now, which is what you guys need. And we also are saying that that's not a permanent situation, right? But we're also assigning office hours to it in the agreement. I see if that feels sort of exclusive and restrictive on our best possible use of this structure in the future. And, if we're thinking about it from like a livability standpoint for the residents of Fall River Village, they maybe want to use it as like a meditation center at night, who knows? So I think just planning for it to be an office center is restrictive. And in the same sense, there was some mention of storage in the area, and I'm sort of hesitant to say, how are we already making plans for this space that we didn't really have a best outcome thought process for? We haven't really thought about what's the best possible use of the space for the amount of money or the amount of potential it can hold.
So speaking to the storage, that would coincide with sort of the temporary use, whether that's 1 year, 5 years, whatever that looks like. No permanent changes to the structure are planned to accommodate the storage uses that we've been discussing, nor the office space that we've been discussing. So the storage specifically for the residential piece, primarily most likely the 1 bedrooms, would be a cage style system along with internal bike racks, much like we have at one of our other workforce housing developments as well, which does not constitute a permanent change to the structure.
Temporary change.
We screw them down, we can unscrew them and take them out of the building.
Yeah, and letting people know that they no longer have storage in the area associated with the condo when they moved in just seems like it might be a difficult process. But then again, I'm not in housing, so. One other thing, the stairs that lead from the bottom units to the top units, I do wonder if there's maybe some opportunities to improve accessibility with an access that doesn't include stairs, maybe with a sidewalk along the road.
There's also a roadway that connects the top to the bottom parcel.
Yeah, that roadway, it seems like that roadway, I've driven it, is not very visible all the way around as it goes around that big curve. So we may want to think about options for improving. And I did have some concerns about this is an A accommodation, so it will be STR. So, and that's again, while we're selling it. We said, in your presentation, you said we want to sell as little as possible. Do we know what that looks like as we're making these PUDs, but we still have some that we might sell and some that we might not sell?
It's estimated that we sell up to around 14 units. And that question in the final number really results in what the final sales price of each subsequent sale that we're successful in.
Okay.
And whether that's a bulk sale as well. So as Pete adequately explained, the core goal is to buy down the debt principal. And there is, in a fluid market, if we are able to sell 8 of them
be nice to see
above
some,
what we expect, then that's what we would do.
That makes sense. It would be nice to see some models, that's all. Thanks.
Make one comment first. 2 years ago when we approved the deal on this thing, and it was an incredibly creative deal about the 8th iteration of things that cobbled together that you reviewed nicely. We knew that the plan was to sell off those upper units. We didn't sit and talk about what changes might have to be made, in order to accomplish that. We're at that point now, 2 years later. And so, my mind is flexible here at this point because we never did. We didn't talk about, it could have taken 800 different shapes in how but we're confronted with that now. And obviously, there's going to be whatever modifications you're making here, you're making with the intent to sell, to fulfill what we passed in the first place for selling off these upper units. Trustee Eshel.
So again, not being on the board, 2 years ago, when I just read through it, like Trustee Eigel, I had concerns about how many variances. I am concerned about precedents for the future. And the same comment that Trustee Eigel had as far as how would we approach this if it was a private developer? That's just one of my concerns that I have. The other thing that comes into play that I guess I just want clarification on is 2 years ago there wasn't 1125 or 300. And so in my mind, so I wasn't on the board when the Stanley development was denied for that reason. And so I know one was a change of zoning, the other, this one is a PUD, but doesn't that apply to both? I'm curious, you know, how does, in theory or effect, how does 300 apply to the Stanley project, but as a PUD, even though that the ordinance states both, how we can't consider that, or just clarify that for me if I'm making myself not clear.
Sure, Trustee Eshelman, and this was addressed to some extent by Paul, but I can help answer questions about it. The ballot.
And I did read that.
Understood.
But still, I'm just in theory, I'm curious the difference.
The staff's interpretation was based on the fact that the ballot measure doesn't specifically state what happens for applications that were submitted before the ballot measure was adopted, whereas the vested rights statute under state law does specifically say that applications for site-specific development plans, including in our case, final planned unit development plans, are entitled to the rules that were in place at the time of application. So is that simple? It's staff's interpretation?
Yeah, so but with the zoning, that was also submitted in works on Stanley ahead of time too, right?
Correct,
But we-
and rezonings are not listed under the statute and our code as a type of site-specific development plan. And that's what the statute is applicable to.
Sure. Okay.
So that's the distinction. It really comes, and in both cases, it comes down to what the state law says. And for a planned unit development, that is addressed by state law in that way.
Okay. Interesting, thank you. That's all that I think I have right now.
Trustee Brown.
Okay, so following up on that, my concern here is that we've been talking about this as if it were a new PUD, even though it's called an amended PUD. So there is some question in my mind, the extent to which that statute applies. It might not. I don't know that we would have a definitive answer unless Scott has one.
I have one comment that I want to call out. The application as submitted, the box that is checked for the type of application is under other, and it explicitly says PUD amendment.
So, and I would say that some of these concerns about this coming up new, it feels to me a little bit like what we do with legal non-conforming uses. It's not that at all, I get that, but it's, most of the issues here we're talking about have to do with parking and lot lines and things like that, which were in existence previously, and they're only changing on the PUD in order to be able to facilitate the financing plan. So it doesn't feel like anything other than just, we're looking at it differently, and because of this need to provide the financing. And if we don't provide the financing, we have problems sustaining this project long term. But, you know, just to say that, it just feels a little bit like what we run into with legal non-conforming uses in a totally different context where it's not legal non-conforming uses, but be that as it may. I had one constituent contact me hoping that we could figure out a way to sell no units or less units, possibly by allocating more 6E funds to this. Has that been given any consideration? Because, I mean, I think the concern is once you have these units off the workforce housing, you can't replace them because of the cost of replacement. And it might be better to reallocate funds that way. But that's a decision that you guys are going to make. I'm not suggesting that we have anything to do with that, but it is something that a constituent raised. So I wanted to pass that along to you. And I wanted to point out one thing from before, you know, this whole thing about change of use. Yes, it's a change of use, but if you sell these 14 units, it's going back and they make it vacation rental. It's what it was before, so I'm not sure why you would object to that if it was permitted before. Unless you're just totally against vacation rentals, which some people are, understand that. And I kind of feel like I want to understand the sidewalk issue, because the road that goes up from lower to upper is not Farview, right? It connects to Farview, so the sidewalk would only be on the portion on Skyview, which is essentially on the north, or not Skyview, Farview, on the north side of this property, and not going really down the hill, right? If you were to put it, huh?
It would be off the property completely.
Yeah. So for me, sidewalk, I kind of agree, sidewalk makes no sense here. The landscaping and the lighting you're willing to do, I would suggest if we decide to approve this, we include that as one of the conditions of approval rather than take your word for it. I think, you know, I would believe you do it too, but nonetheless. Anyway, that's really all I have, because it seems to me like this is sort of my only real concern is the 1125 issue. And people are not going to be able to understand the distinction for why this is different than what we did in Stanley Circle on the rezoning.
So can I respond to a couple of
Yeah,
items?
it seems inconsistent, and it is. But we have a legal reason for a difference there, so I think I would support this amended PUD. Thank you.
So I think just a couple of things, and back to Trustee Mears, your question or comment about the limiting the hours. It's not just limited to the office hours. There are allowances for events to happen in the morning, or also after office hours as well. I think we've limited to where the end of the events can happen from 11 to 10, I want to say, from memory. So it still allows it, but it's really trying to respect the long-term residents who live directly below that there. And that's one of our main priorities with Skyview. We knew from the time of purchase we're not going to use that for its highest and best use from a capitalistic standpoint. That's just not who we are as the housing authority. That being said, we would like to maximize the value with the sales of the townhomes so we can sell as little as possible, which would involve likely including that STR capability, which creates the highest price that we can get. By subdividing it, we're also able to keep the 8 one-bedroom unit. That's one of the non-conforming, because if you have a townhome, you're able to do 0 lot lines, so all of those are conforming. It's really the Cliff House there, Skyview, and then that 1-bedroom building. And so Cliff House we'd like to use for the childcare, and then the 8-unit 1-bedroom building we would like to use for below market workforce housing. When it comes to the PUD, if there was no waivers, there wouldn't be a need for a PUD. The PUD is designed for having waivers that get some flexibility with certain areas of the development code. So if there's any PUD that comes that doesn't have a waiver for whether it's a use or something to the development code, then it probably would not go through the PUD aspect. And then lastly, just from ballot initiative 300 or 1125, this up to this point has always been viewed as an amended PUD. And so there was also a recent ruling by the Colorado Supreme Court, Kavanaugh versus Telluride, just last month, that ruled that amended PUDs are done at an administrative level, not a governmental level, which essentially would mean that 1125 would not apply for it or to it. We also have a letter from our lawyer as well that can expand on that much more eloquently than I can.
Mayor Pro Tem, and then I'm actually going to go back to Trustee Eigel. He was in line for the second go-around, but to make sure everybody has been represented. So.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. First, the rhetorical-ish question has been raised of how would this look if it was with a private developer? I hope we'd approach it the exact same. That's up to us. That we would apply fairness and equality to whoever's applying. Like, that's a comment on the town board behavior. So I think in the public hearing process, we hold ourselves accountable for a fair and equal process. So I just want to make that comment that that's an odd question, I think, to propose, because I'd be committed to a fair and equal process. So I just want to make that comment. I do agree with Bill. I have to be very careful. Specifically, I can't have a blanket agreement with Bill. But I do have an agreement with Bill specifically about the simplicity of the intent and application to allow for the fulfillment of the plan that has been in process the entire way through and financing this plan. We're not talking about shovels on the ground, except for maybe some landscape accommodations, which I also agree with that, Bill, that I think having that as a condition of approval makes sense to address Mr. Shirk's comments. There's not a construction component of this. This is truly to the next step in the process of what has been laid out, in my opinion, all along. So I'm going to keep it short and simple. I agree with the conditions of approval. I agree with the review criteria. I appreciate the additional detail that's always been provided. I think that's always great for transparency. It shows commitment to being, open to let the public know what's going on, let your residents know what's going on. And all of that's great, period. In my opinion, our job is, does it comply with the relevant review criteria and the legal constraints that we've discussed related to Ordinance 1125? Some people may have a different opinion than I do, but I believe it does, and I believe that's our job tonight, is to decide that, not to talk about more granular items like some of the other things we've discussed tonight. So I'm supportive of this with the conditions that we've talked about, and hopefully we can continue to move forward.
You have to turn off. Sorry. Trustee Eigel.
Thanks, Mayor. Do you remember when we had a housing authority and town board work study session? I felt like we were further apart during that meeting, and I refer to that because when we talk about getting into the weeds or granular or micromanaging or any of those words, I push back emotionally and now with my words to say, it is our job to sit here and use our good judgment as elected citizens of this community to make decisions based on the information we're given. So I appreciate the information that you've given us. Unfortunately, if this is an amendment, I think that we may have some legal issues that we must attend to. And we can talk about that later or now, but if this is an amendment and not a new application, there may be some application of the ordinance that the citizens voted for. Am I close, or am I completely off base with that?
Trustee Eigel, that would be a matter of interpretation. I believe the approved initiative begins...
Whose interpretation?
The town board's ultimately.
Okay.
I believe the initiative begins all applications, motions, et cetera, for all rezonings and all planned unit developments. So that would be the term planned unit developments. Would that include amendments for planned unit developments?
Yeah, so then I'm going to argue this is not an amendment. And I don't think if we approve 14 units, for use as STRs, it's gonna go back to the way it was. This was originally a single venue with people going to the same event that shared parking between the condos and the event. It was a completely different animal in the PUD that was approved for that use, and they went through all the hoops to be able to use it that way. So this doesn't feel like an amendment to me. And if it's a new application, actually, then maybe we should be considering 1125 as it pertains. I didn't see anything in the packet about public input other than one letter, and then the gentleman spoke in addition to that. Did you have a community meeting about this issue, the PUD?
Yes, we did, Trustee Agel, and those minutes are in the packet.
Okay, so what I saw in those minutes, though, was essentially an outline of the presentation that I would assume that you gave. But I didn't see any public input or feedback from the community. Can you articulate what that feedback was from the community?
Without reading back through the minutes, my memory of the substantive comments and questions received during that neighborhood meeting primarily resolved around use of $60 to support the property and how the sales process would work, and if we were best placed to achieve the sales that we were planning on.
Okay.
They were
so-
relatively limited to
Yeah, I
that
just
scope.
didn't see the public input in the packet, and that always should be a part of our conversation, so I wanted to see that. I don't think that we're here to make business decisions on behalf of the Housing Authority, obviously. We're looking at the code, whether the code applies, and if this PUD meets the criteria. I thought it was interesting that Pete said we're not gonna use it for its best and highest use. That's not who we are, and
Speaking of a capitalistic highest best use. That was the wording that
well,
Pete used.
yeah, we also talked previously about, I'm not making any business decisions or judging the financial decision-making of the Housing Authority. Previously, though, there was a conversation we had about how to use the property and whether selling it as a single unit. There was some conversation where the Housing Authority said, it is our position that we will not use Skyview as an event center because that would have a negative impact on the residents in the lower section. And that was something that came from y'all. So I'm surprised to hear that we're considering in this PUD having an event center that can operate until 10 p.m. And if we say 10 p.m. one day a week, that gives you the latitude to do 7 days a week. There's a lot of latitude in what we're being presented here as to what this PUD may evolve into.
I don't believe that's an accurate representation of the previous communication that we gave you. We mentioned it would not be a wedding event center. What we talked about was maybe having some lunch and learn type things, some things that might have the Chamber of Commerce, for example.
I think you just said it was something that people could use until 10 p.m.
Yes, and so there's also happy hours that can happen after work. What we're not going to have, and it's also limited by the capacity, is we're not planning to have weddings there. We are going to be owning that building for the time being. We have control of the HOA as for a number of years. We have a fiduciary and a moral obligation to the long-term residents who live down below there.
And the
if you
community.
go stand outside on Fall River and look down, you can see right on somebody's back porch there's, I don't know, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old child type of toys and things there.
It's a vibrant living area, I
Right,
agree.
and
Yeah.
having that type of loud music consistently night over night during the week, during the weekends, it doesn't create a good living situation for our residents, and that's something that we are dedicated to making sure that we're able to provide.
So what we haven't seen is the level of dedication and commitment you have, because we know that that is going to be in office temporarily. And you just said 2 minutes ago, for the time being, that's going to be something that you own and control. So I am obviously concerned about this PUD, and I will not support it. And when I have an opportunity to make a motion, I will do so, Mr. Mayor.
I think we really have discussed this sufficiently. Chris, do you have a final to make?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before you take any motions, I wanted to add a clarification.
Yes.
The development code does not contemplate or have any application for an amendment to a PUD. There is a minor modification available to development plans, PUDs, which essentially is an amendment. This application does not qualify for that, so it is viewed as a new PUD that, in essence, is amending the existing one. I hope that didn't further muddy the waters.
Thanks. Yeah, my concern is if this is not passed and the other pieces, that we impair the ability of the other 65 workforce housing, and that's what we set out to do 2 years ago. That being said, all reports, statements, exhibits, written communications presented will be accepted as part of the record. The public hearing is closed. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to deny Resolution 8726. I move to deny this resolution approving the Fall River Village Plan Unit development because I'm unable to make the findings required under the development code to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll make a second and we can vote on it.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve the amended PUD with the conditions set forth by staff, plus the 2 on the landscaping and lighting.
I'll second if that's a sufficient motion, unless we need to be more specific.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think we can clarify, make sure it's the intent of the motion, but I'll leave it to the mayor to accept that the substitute motion has been made.
Yeah, the substitute motion substantively was to approve 8726.
To approve the resolution, and I think that since it's a resolution, let's get the language exact. So the operative clause starts, the second amended Fall River Village 2 PUD plan is hereby approved with the following finding. I think we would change that to findings and conditions. The first one that is in the draft resolution is the finding, and we're adding 2 conditions. So it would say, and the following 2 conditions. So I guess it would be the following finding and the following 2 conditions. Then it'll say 1, and 1 is, do we have the exact text of that, Paul? Is that something that you can?
Wasn't it on a slide, the parking one?
Yeah, if you have the text of that one, let's pull that one up so that we're all clear as to what the motion is.
You wanted the parking one.
Yes, I want the parking one too, absolutely. Yeah,
So
and I wanted the parking one and the landscaping and the lighting.
Okay, and so let's
I want all 3.
state those, and we'll capture those as part of the recording. And if it passes, we can include it as part of the resolution. So let's make sure we state exact language. Is that something that you would provide, or would you look to Paul to provide?
I'd like to Paul to provide, I think.
Yeah, it's all present in the presentation.
I just want to make sure we're all looking at it and know what the motion is.
No, I don't think that's true, Mayor, because it came from the comments of Mr. Shirk, so.
I could make it a 10.
Yeah,
I can offer the landscape, the 2008 approval of the PUD. The landscape plan doesn't show, I believe, the desired landscaping. So conformance with that plan. I'll let Dan put that into.
Conformance is required with the 2008 landscape plan.
And the other is essentially amendments of dark sky lighting fixtures. Which,
I think, I'll give it a shot, but I think the motion is, I move for the approval of resolution 87-26 with the addition of the following conditions. Parking shall be managed by the owners association to ensure parking is provided in accordance with the approved PUD in a safe manner that does not block emergency access and shall include enforcement of event facility occupancy limits as necessary. Conformance with the 2018 landscape, 2008?
18.
18, yeah, 2018 landscape plan, and compliance with exterior lighting, requiring exterior lighting to comply with the development code. Is that adequate or appropriate?
I believe that captures it, other than if the board desires to put any timeframes on conformance.
Is that sufficient as stated by Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor, I do believe that's sufficient as stated. Compliance with the code on lighting would imply that the code is meant to apply when it otherwise might not apply. So I think the intent is understood on that. If the motion passes, we will not wordsmith it, but we will make sure we do what we can to get that sensibly placed in the resolution in the way it was stated.
And just, since this is a new PUD application, I just want to be sure we're satisfying all form and legal requirements for a new PUD.
That's, so Trustee Mears, that's essentially the board's role here tonight.
Okay.
And the resolution would be a finding by the board that all of those standards of review that are in the development code have been met. So yes, that would be a determination that it meets the code.
That is our purpose.
And another clarification, because we have 6 tonight, if this motion ties, it fails. If any
Correct.
motion ties, it fails, I should say. Okay.
Did you have a further comment, Trustee Mears?
So there's a first and a second?
Yes.
The first and second.
There's a
Yeah,
first and a
yeah,
second.
Your mic's on, Gene.
Yeah.
Your mic's on. So my additional comment would be with the second motion on the substitute motion that I think I understand, that we do not have written out, and we're gonna clear it up after we vote on it. Is that correct? We're gonna clean it up?
Correct. It
Because
would
we haven't
be-
really done that before. We've
That
had
is
a,
unusual, yes.
we've
So-
had a resolution in writing before we voted on it.
I'm trying to think back to when we last might have done this. and
I'm just trying
I
to
can't
pin
say
down the series of unusual events tonight. I think there's a movie. So I want to call out, from my perspective, having reviewed this material, I do not believe this meets the standards of review. Those standards have not been met. It's our job to review those and to be confident as we vote to support this. And, yeah, I'm not going to be able to support it.
We can vote on the substitute motion. Whatever that means. Sarah, I guess you get to decide.
The motion fails 3-3.
Yeah, 3-3, the motion fails. Do we need town attorney to vote on the original motion?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, so the original motion was to deny 8726, and we can vote on that.
Mayor, just to
And I have a
just to
question.
clarify this one, and we have a question from Trustee Eigel as well. This is a motion to deny the resolution. Essentially, it's also, even more importantly, it's a motion to deny the application. That's the act the board would be taking. There's been an application made to
Can I
you.
withdraw the motion?
If the mayor accepts the withdrawal of the motion.
Mayor, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
You may.
Okay.
In that case, that item is complete. We're
Mayor-
on
Mayor-
resolution.
Mayor, I don't think it's fair to say the item is complete. The board needs to take some sort of action on the item. It's an application that's before you. There was a motion to approve the application. That motion failed by a tie vote, but no action has yet been taken.
We're
Well,
missing a
this happened one time before, and
And I made
it-
a similar comment.
It concerned me that we had to do a reverse motion. We just allowed the withdrawal of the original motion to deny.
So I'm going to ask that we postpone any further consideration because we're short a trustee. And I think with this close a vote, we ought to have everybody weigh in.
In fact, yeah, we could have done that before.
Yeah.
But this motion did not pass, therefore.
And I feel like I don't have enough information for this, and I would like to gather more information on the background, so if we
Well,
could
you've
continue
got
this item.
8826 and 8926 to discuss if we choose to continue those. And, well, we need to, I think what you're saying is asking to continue both of those.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we all want to support the housing authority and actually do want to make this work and these PUDs go forward. But at the same time, we're just not sure that we're doing it correctly.
Well, I'm not sure I completely
Yeah,
agree with
you
the
may
first
feel
half
that
of
way.
that statement, but, so for continuance, what action do I need to take for continuance?
Mayor, someone would need to make a motion to continue the item to the next
All right.
regularly scheduled board meeting.
I will move to continue 8826 and 8926.
Second.
We can,
Mayor, hold on one moment. I believe there are three of them, but I'm trying to, yeah, I think it's fine to do them all at once, making the
okay,
determination.
let's do them separately. I withdraw that. I move to continue Resolution 8826 to the next available board meeting.
87.
8826.
That's
Well-
the next one. I think we want to continue 87.
Yeah, it's
This one
87.
we just did.
The one we just voted on. Because it was a tie, we're going to continue it for further.
Can I continue that since it failed?
Mayor, the motion failed. The application has not yet been acted upon, so the application
all
can be
right.
continued.
Everything,
Can,
go
can-
back to 8726. I move to continue 8726.
I'll second, and I just have a process question, just to make sure I understand. Because the motion to approve failed, we still haven't, as you said, there's action to be taken on this. If there was a motion, if trustee Eigel hadn't withdrawn his motion, if there was a motion to deny it, and that motion failed, we would still have to take action on it, correct? Because we've tied now both times. Or if he made the motion to deny and it tied, does that suffice to say, do you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem. It is a conundrum that I've had to address before at the Planning Commission. And my advice then was, at the end of the day, if there's absolutely nothing that can be done, if you're in a deadlock with no further possible action, then it'll operate by operation of law as a failure of the application. But that's because there are really no other options left, and that it's far preferable for there to be a record of an action taken on the application.
Okay, then I definitely second we continue it.
We can vote on the continuation.
And this is yes, Mayor, to clarify, this is a motion, as I understand it, to continue the application to the next regularly scheduled board meeting, which would be August 11th at 7 p.m.
Do we have a full complement of the board at that time?
Mayor, I am unaware of any planned absences of
Okay.
board members at that point.
All right, well, we can continue again if we need to, but. All right, continued. I move to continue Resolution 8826 to the next scheduled board meeting.
I'll second.
Vote. And that passes. I move to continue Resolution 8926 to the next scheduled board meeting.
I second.
Vote. All right, we'll move on. I'm trying to get to yours. I think, let's see, we have Resolution 9026 supplemental budget appropriations. Director Zimmerman is so efficient. I'll bet this one just zooms. Welcome back.
Yeah. Pull up my screen. Mayor and trustees, Finance Director Tammy Zimmerman. Okay, so periodically throughout the year, we do a shoring up of our budget. We recognize grant awards, we adjust our projects for revised estimates, or closing out completed projects. We address any operational needs that were not known at the time that we did the original budget. We meet with various departments and discuss any amendments that are needed, and we update our elaborate spreadsheets. So we ensure compliance with Colorado budget law that by approving any changes to our appropriations totals, that it comes before approval to the town board. And in this particular amendment, we have a change to our total expenditures of $3.7 million. And this is just a slide that summarizes the proposed changes by fund, and that's also identified in the resolution. So we're going to go into detail in a couple of slides ahead, but one of the most important considerations with any of these budget amendments is that we're ensuring the town's long-term financial stability. And with the proposed changes, all the major funds continue to meet or exceed our reserve requirements that were established in our financial policies. The general fund balance projected end at the end of the year is approximately 36.4% of our, 29.1% of our expenditures. If you combine it with our community reinvestment fund, it jumps to 36.4% of available reserves from our operating expenditures. We're ensuring that these changes do not create any ongoing deficits. The majority are one-time grant funded or supported by available fund balances. Also noted on this slide is we provided an updated fund balance estimate prior to the issuance of our audited financial statements, which have not been issued yet. So beginning with the general fund, we have two primary adjustments. The first is grants. So we have landfill mitigation grants, co-responder grant, bulletproof vest grant. These are supported with offsetting revenue. Then we have, based on direction from our town administrator, we have several one-time investments that are using the excess from our general fund balance, or what we call available fund balance. And this available fund balance was generated by stronger sales tax revenues that were collected compared to what we budgeted and expense savings. So these one-time directed investments are additional repairs to our aging town facilities, funding for our Spry Point utility billing software implementation. We have a catch-up contribution to our vehicle replacement fund that addresses approximately a 30% increase to the cost of our vehicles since 2020, and 5 interrupters that improve the electric reliability and wildfire mitigation. And then we are also contributing an additional reserve to our police facility reserve. And lastly, and we'll go into all of those numbers here in a couple of slides very quickly, we're doing supplemental funding for the Event Center storage building. Let's see. Okay, so for the street improvement fund, we're increasing for additional paving for work for the benefit of the Estes Valley Recreation and Parks and Recreation District. The town is to be fully reimbursed, and I believe it's an agenda item right after me. Then in the Power and Communications Fund, we are removing the BEAD grant that came before the board to not accept the award of the federally funded grant. We're maintaining the local match, though, and redirecting it to future fiber optic expansion, which was explained by the Power and Communications staff. We are also budgeting interest that's to be paid on our refundable customer deposits. We're reflecting the higher interest rate that the Public Utility Commission is saying that we need to return to. We have several large commercial refunds that are owed refunds with the interest income. We're also increasing the allowance for uncollectible utility accounts. We did one big write-off in January that was made up of several accounts. It was a little bit of an error in the memo. It wasn't just one particular account customer that we wrote off. It was several. And then we're funding the SpryPoint software implementation and the 5 interrupters. On the water side, we are recognizing savings from the Bureau Area Phase 4 project. And did I go ahead? I'm sorry. And also the water's portion of the SpryPoint billing software. On the Fleet Maintenance Fund, we are doing a utilization, we're recommending a utilization study that evaluates and supports the town's replacement planning of vehicles. And then we're also adjusting the budget to reflect how our vehicle parts are now being processed under our new Tyler ERP system. And it's got offsetting revenue. And the Vehicle Replacement Fund, we're doing a one-time contribution to help address the significant cost increases. And then Facilities Management Fund, additional funding for repairs to our aging facilities. And in summary, this keeps the town in compliance with our budget requirements while maintaining our reserve balances, avoids creating ongoing operating costs that exceed our revenues, and it positions the town well with our future capital infrastructure needs. And now I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And hopefully I went quick.
I have a basic question. So when there were positive numbers, that means either you transferred money from a different fund, or you have an increase in revenue that you didn't originally budget for. And if it's negative, you're either taking it out of that fund or you have expenses above what you originally budgeted for. Am I understanding that right?
Are you referencing the negative numbers in the summaries?
Yeah, the negative numbers and the positive numbers here.
Yeah, so that's removing it from the expenditure side. So all of these budget changes are just on the expenditure side?
Totally on the expenditure side.
Totally on the expenditure side. There's a separate spreadsheet for revenues, but according to our budget appropriations, we concentrate on expenditures.
Okay, so if it's a positive number, does that mean we spent less than we expected?
So we're adding to the expense side of it. So for example, on the street
Oh,
improvement fund, we're
I get it now.
adding.
And Power and Communications, because of that removal of the big grant we're taking, okay.
Right.
I think I get it now.
No, it gets confusing.
It's a little
I agree.
confusing, because I expect revenues and expenses to be together somehow. But
That's not how we get to report it, unfortunately.
I see no other questions. I would take a motion.
Can I just approve the budget amendment as proposed?
Yes.
I move to approve Resolution 90-26, Supplemental Budget Appropriations Number 2 to the 2026 budget.
I'll second. Well, Mayor Pro Tem, we'll give it to Mayor Pro Tem. She moved to approve 9026. We'll give it to Trustee Eshelman for the second, and we'll give Trustee Eigel the third. So just to, yeah. Okay, we could vote. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Director Zimmerman. Resolution 9126, Memorandum of Understanding between the Town of Estes Park and our beautiful Estes Valley Recreation and Park District, and change order to the 2026 overlay and patching contract with Colson Excavating, and it looks like Engineer Whitwer is presenting. Yeah, it does look like that. So, okay, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. This is an MOU, as you mentioned, between the town and the rec district. Quite some time ago, the rec, Director Carousel reached out to talk about potentially joining efforts in some infrastructure improvements near Stanley Park. So we started our trail project back in February and March over by the gun range in the dog park. And we intended to finish that trail with our contract with Colson Excavating and finish that trail out to Manfred Avenue. So we got together with Tom, talked about what the scope of this work would look like, and thought it was a great opportunity to partner and join forces so that we could save the taxpayers some money on some management of this contract. So currently, the estimate for this project is, with some contingency, is about $1.1 million. There's been a lot of discussion. We've worked well together on what do we really need here, what are some things we can cut out. So I think we're going to provide a great product for the community, and these are some much needed infrastructure improvements in the area. And if you have any questions for Tom, obviously he's here to answer any. But I think he would tell you that that's one of their top comments, is that they'd love to see that parking lot improved. So I'm here to answer any questions if you'd have any.
Yeah, I live right over there, and when it stalled out and stopped getting added to, my wife and I were like, oh, come on. Anyway, thanks for the good work. Trustee Eigel.
The project looks good, so thanks to both entities working on this. These will not impact my decision. I'm supportive, but the community may be interested to hear how this will change the number of parking spaces and the time that the parking lot will be closed, what accesses will be impacted by this project, and what the approximate time frame is. Can you elaborate on any of that?
As far as overall parking spaces, it's hard to determine because there's no really limits out there. So it's kind of a nilly-willy of where you can park. So having defined spaces, one improvement with that is that we're providing ADA spaces. So there will be significant ADA parking compared to what's there now.
How many total spaces in this redesign?
Great question. I do not have a number off the top of my head.
And then overflow parking, I assume, would become the school?
Correct.
If it's too much?
If needed, yes.
I figured it'd be off the top of your head. I don't mean to make you dig through the documents.
Yeah, if you look at the plans on page 2, there's a tally. It's too late for me to do mental math right now.
Nope, that's fine. I'll figure it out. Do you know how long
construction phasing. So we'd be looking at starting this after Scott Fest, so mid-September. The goal would be to get the paving done before the weather turns. So, we typically put an October 31st date on that, but the date doesn't really matter. It's really when the weather changes and we get those cold temps. So as far as what would be under construction and what would be available, we'll work with Colson on starting at one specific area, working through, and then kind of doing a flip-flop where there's a certain area closed for construction purposes, and then we'll maintain.
Is it a month-long project, or is it a couple weeks?
I'd say closer to 6 weeks.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay, thanks for the additional info.
Of course.
It'll be nice to see those improvements.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I think I read the contract correctly, so there's the $75,000 for contingency, and if there's a need for more, it's up to the district that they can deposit that at any time, right?
I believe that's the way we wrote that.
Correct.
Okay, and what if the district says we don't want to deposit any more beyond the $75,000 contingency? Then we just come back and renegotiate? We are not, I guess my question is, we're not on the hook.
No, we're not. I'm looking up the specific language, but no, we're not on the hook.
Okay, thanks.
Seeing no other questions, I would take a motion.
Mark, get it.
I'm afraid I'll mess it up.
No.
Oh,
Let's all wait for Mark to do it.
okay.
Well, I can take mine off if you want.
I'm just gonna go.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 9126 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, trustee Eshelman moved to approve 9126. Trustee Mears seconded, and we can vote. Hey, thanks for spending the evening with us, guys. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, we'll move on to the last item on the agenda. Rescheduling the June 22nd, 2027 Town Board meeting to June 29th, 2027. And Town Attorney, I think you're going to remind us what this is about.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will cap off your evening tonight with a reprise of what we first discussed at your last meeting. I brought it up after coming back from the Colorado Municipal League Annual Conference. This is something that, unfortunately, while being an excellent resource for any town board members who are able to make it, is something that conflicts with your second board meeting in June, apparently every year. So this is hopefully a low-impact way to allow any board members who would like to attend next year to be able to do that more feasibly. Technically, it's the mayor who calls special meetings. This would be an establishment of a special meeting for the 29th of June 2027, the cancellation of the regular meeting on the 22nd of June. To simplify, if this is something that the board would like to do, all it would take would be a motion to reschedule the June 22nd, 2027 meeting to June 29th, 2027.
Well, one of the operative questions is if we did that, how many of the folks at this board are interested in going to CML? While I encourage folks to go because of the networking and the education, I know we have a lot of employed people on the board and other factors. I don't know how folks got back to the town clerk on that, but I mean, I would plan to go. I go every year. I find it very useful. Would it make sense to change? If there's only one or two of us that want to go, then why change it? You'd still have a quorum if one or two of us went.
I've been once my first year that I was elected and haven't been since, so I would like to go if possible, and I don't know if that changes if you and I are both gone.
Mayor Hall, Trustee Lancaster has previously indicated that he plans to attend next year.
That's three. Others?
That's a tough weekend to go to leave town running a business, so.
Oh, yeah.
Tough time to leave.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't commit to it.
Right.
And I would also, while I want to be supportive, I would also hesitate changing a public meeting for the sake of our convenience to attend a meeting that would be good. And if there weren't any other resources available, I think that'd be reasonable, but without any disrespect for the organization, I don't think it's reasonable to change this for our convenience.
Trustee Eshelman.
I can't commit now. I would like to go, and I would support it.
I think regardless, I don't think we want to run a meeting with 4 trustees only.
Do what?
I don't think we'd want to run a meeting with only 4 trustees. Who knows what would be on the agenda to decide it.
Mark wants Gary, me,
Yeah.
Frank.
Yeah. Let's get all the pet projects on it. Trustee Mears.
I would like to go, and I think it directly affects our function here on the board and
It sounds to
support
me,
of that, so.
yeah, I'm hearing like 4 or 5 that have interest, even if we don't have a commitment. In that case, we can take a motion.
I move to reschedule the June 22nd, 2027 Town Board meeting to June 29th, 2027.
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem moved to reschedule the June 22nd to June 29th, 2027, and Trustee Mears seconded. We can vote. Right then, it's a done deal. Any other comments? No.
I take it that means you assent to the special meeting on the 20th.
Yes. This town board meeting is adjourned.